Sounds like in the AI generation, we have life imitating Mike Judge's Silicon Valley. Remember the episode? If you're a Silicon Valley fan, which you should be, it was a great show. Very underappreciated. Jin Yang, great character, introduces the new internet. And he just has on a whiteboard, new Reddit, new Google, new Spotify, just piracy. He's slapping a new on it.
Jin Yang, are you copying all those companies for the Chinese markets?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so instead of just copying companies or the intellectual piracy that we are familiar with when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party, a long-running problem, now they're in the business of intellectual piracy of our congresshumans, digital twins. For more on this, please be joined by Maximillian Garely, who works on special projects at the advisory firm Quince Strategy, formerly held roles in finance and tech. His piece in The Spectator, Has China Cloned Your Congressman? Maximillian Garely, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
So no more need for honeypots like Fang Fang. You can just assembly line the Eric Swalwells and send them to Capitol Hill?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because ultimately the main difference between a honeypot and kind of the reverse engineered Eric Swalwell method from tweets and video appearances would be that, politicians only put stuff online that they want you to see, read, and hear. And ultimately, if you want to replicate every intricate detail of their personality, you probably do need to have a more, say, intimate relationship with them than what you could find that's publicly available online.
Well, what is the digital twin? So what is the Chinese Communist Party attempting to do here? And this is something that was brought to public attention last week by Florida Republican Congressman Kat Cammack. But what are they trying to do and to what end?
Yeah, so Kat Cammack brought this up at the Hill Summit, and while we're unsure if it's true because she hasn't really provided us with much evidence, what we can surmise that they might be trying to do is essentially scraping all publicly available data from government officials here in the U.S. and using that data to build profiles of people's personalities, behavior, decision-making patterns, and ultimately, by doing that, they can replicate these people's personas almost digitally, and then use those personas maybe to then practice negotiating or to just try and predict how they might vote. And so that is kind of probably what they're really trying to do with all that data.
So is this like doing political gaming to try to predict the outcomes of legislative debates or general political debates in this country, specifically as it relates to policy towards the Chinese communists?
Almost certainly, and I bet they're looking into things slightly more intricately than just matters relating to China. I believe that if the Chinese were to be doing something like this, they would just be looking into everything because the more data that you can collect, the more accurately you can predict matters related to China, and then matters that also are maybe peripherally related to China, such as foreign policy in Africa.
And like, how does this tie in with the sort of the larger geopolitical gambits the Chinese communists have made, like the Belt and Road Initiative, for example?
Well, see, this is interesting. I don't know how it would directly tie into Belt and Road because Belt and Road more has to do with physical infrastructure. But where I do see this having major implications is in the intelligence space. If say, Chinese intelligence officers are able to practice on digital twins before they approach a real-life target, and they might be able to run a simulation hundreds or thousands of times, I mean, that's just incredibly valuable information that they can gain, even if they just have access to publicly available data like tweets and video appearances and radio appearances.
And so is the United States doing the same thing? I mean, in the era of AI, I mean, whatever the Chinese Communist Party can do, we can do too. So is this something that's just part of spycraft at this stage?
That remains unclear, but I would say that if there are suspicions over the Chinese doing it, then it's highly likely that we're engaged in the exact same behavior, maybe at a more advanced level.
Speaking of Kamek, Kat Kamek, the congressman, she also said last week that there needs to be stronger vetting standards for congressional staff, suggesting that our erstwhile allies of convenience, the Qataris, and perhaps others, are trying to insinuate their assets onto onto congressional staffs. And we've seen the Chinese communists do this too, most notably in New York, where it was wasn't it a higher level? Am I remembering that correctly? In New York City, in the Adams administration, there was a higher level Chinese Communist Party asset in his office.
I believe so, although the name escapes me at the moment, as well as other improprieties relating to Turkey and that mess of an administration.
Yes. But this is not sort of the digital footprint or the digital twinning, I suppose. This does not mean that we still don't have sort of exposure of human assets that our adversaries and maybe sort of our tenuous allies like the Qataris are also using to try to infiltrate the halls of power and influence public policy.
Yeah, of course not. So, as I mentioned previously, when you're dealing with publicly available information, it's exactly that. It's only, what a politician wants you to know about them that they're going to publicly release. So individual, intelligence assets that go and infiltrate administrations in real life are extremely important even today, with the rise of all this publicly available data that we can scrape, because they'll be able to more intricately know a politician, their preferences, their behaviors, and ultimately extract information from them more personally.
So, other than being cognizant of this, is there anything specifically we could do about it, even if we wanted to?
No, strictly no, apart from, publishing less data, but that would be tough because, in the United States, we have this culture of disclosure within our government, because we are a democracy. China doesn't have that same culture. And so that's the biggest risk is that Chinese politicians are generally far more secretive and reserved. We know a lot less about them as the public than we do, American politicians. And so I suppose the biggest risk for us is simply them knowing more about us and our people than we know about them and their people.
Yeah, but of course, if we started behaving like them, then we would no longer be us. We don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Either. Yeah.
Of course.
Max Garely works on special projects at the advisory firm Quince Strategy, formerly held roles in finance and tech. His piece in The Spectator, Has China Cloned Your Congressman? Max, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. And he joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Since 2007, Folds of Honor has awarded nearly 73,000 educators